Okay, so Marshall and I have wanted to start this series for a long time where we talk about engineering in your early 20s because nobody really talks about it and everyone's super specialized, but we have no idea what we're doing with our lives. So I have brought Marshall here to interview, and we're gonna start off with some basics, go into her journey into engineering, talk a little bit about personal stuff, and finish off with some advice to younger of us selves. So first things first, let's talk about what degree you got and what age you were when you got that degree.
So I actually ended up getting my mechanical engineering degree from Oregon State University pretty recently. I just graduated in spring of 2020.
Oh geez.
Yeah.
Wow, what an introduction into the world.
I was a little bit older of a student. I ended up going to school for a few other degrees for 4 years and then decided to go to school for 4 more years and get my engineering degree. So
Gosh,
it's been a ride.
What do you do day to day? So like I know you're in the paper mill industry.
Yes.
So what is your day-to-day task? What does your job look like right now?
So my title is a maintenance planner, and that can be a little bit confusing on what exactly that is.
Yeah, I'm good.
The way I describe to people is like you're a mini project manager. So I do a lot of day-to-day maintenance planning. Say a pump breaks, I schedule the work. I buy the parts. Mm-hmm. I make sure that our crew has everything they need to go fix that pump. And I can do that pretty quick. It's day-to-day issues, troubleshooting, mechanical issues. And we also have larger tasks, which are, I have an area at the mill and that I control. And
that's cool.
Yes, and I do a big, huge plan for our annual outage. So that's when they take the machinery down for a certain amount of time to do maintenance. And that's a really big job. Mm-hmm. And so I plan that entire job, which involves getting contractors involved, getting bids, getting timing. Luckily, I don't have to worry too much about the cost. Somebody else deals with that.
Yeah, and you were in construction, and
yes.
That's how we met.
Yeah.
So maybe for what they don't know, maybe let's go over
start from the beginning.
How did we meet? So we met in construction. Jay Dunn.
We did. We met the first day of my interview, and I just remember seeing Liz over there in her little trench coat.
Oh yeah, that was
and I was like,
when I tried,
she looks like a badass, and
I was trying to.
It was great. I made a mental note. I have to go buy one of those coats. I never did, but still need to do that.
And then so it sounds like what you're doing now sounds a lot like what you were doing construction-wise.
Yes.
So it really did, like your pivoting was perfect because you started as a project engineer and then you transitioned into basically project engineering.
Yeah.
But almost for mills.
Yeah.
And paper mills and a little bit different.
Slightly different industry, but doing kind of the basic same work.
Yeah, it sounds similar. Like when you talk about it, you're talking
is.
about bids and contracts. I'm like, okay, that is exactly what we did at Jay Dunn.
Work heavily with contractors where I'm at now, which we did then.
Yeah.
And that was actually something that I really wanted more of, was that human interaction, which you know, with engineering, as you don't always get that
in your cubicle.
Which field you go in. Yeah, so
oh my gosh. And then you started out as an art major, or did you finish your degree in art?
No. I started, honestly, when I started out in school, which I assume a lot of you guys are kind of going through, but maybe if you're looking into engineering, maybe you have more of an idea than I did. I had no freaking clue what I wanted to do when I started going to school when I was 18. Started out in art and then went into graphic design and then went into business and almost finished my degree in business. Realized I was miserable. Decided that, well, my boyfriend at the time wanted to go to Oregon State and become a mechanical engineer, and I was like, screw it, why not? So I took on 4 more years of school. So,
oh my gosh. Yeah, because I was wondering, because art, graphic design, business is very drastically different
odd progression
to mechanical engineering, because mechanical engineering is a very specific branch of engineering. Like, so that makes more sense that your boyfriend was going to do it and you're like, oh, let me just jump into it.
Yep.
I did kind of the same thing, not in the sense that somebody told me to, but I just did not know what I wanted to do. And I looked at the degree plans and I just was like, well, this one uses the most language that I understand, like thermodynamics, like you know what you're getting yourself into. Where like electrical, they were talking about like data structures. I'm like, I have no idea. Let's just throw that out the window. So that's why, I mean, it was both kind of a, well, let's just see how it goes. And we graduated, so we did something right.
And we both have jobs, so.
Yeah, oh my gosh. But what advice would you give to people who are kind of in the same boat? Like, they don't know what they want to do with their lives. They're 18, they're forced to pick a major, they're going into a 4-year university. What would you tell your younger self?
I'll kind of tell you what I told myself a little bit, which, I mean, it's not the most elegant way of, you know, deciding on a major, but it does help. One of the things that kind of steered me away from my previous majors was the dilution. There's so many people taking on these majors, and it's hard to get a job with some of these majors. But if you get a mechanical engineering degree, it opens a lot of doors. One of the big reasons why I went into this, and it's not glamorous at all, was the money. I knew that if I got my mechanical engineering degree, that opened so many doors for me. And as a mechanical engineer, you are the Swiss Army knife of engineers.
I completely agree. And I talked about this in a prior video where you, as a mechanical engineer, you do a little bit of electrical. You do a little bit of civil, and since you do fluids, right? And then you touch a little bit of computer science. You really are like a Swiss Army knife.
You do a little bit of chemistry, so you could be a process engineer.
Chemistry, It's crazy. Like, you can do anything, and it makes it almost hard because when you go to look for a job, you're like, wow, these jobs are vastly different than the other ones. But what is it like? I know you've experienced similar things to me in the sense that you're not only a mechanical engineer, you're a female mechanical engineer, which comes with, you know, some perks, but also a lot of downsides. Like, the only perk I can think of is, like, everyone remembers you, your name, like, somehow. But there are some drawbacks in the sense that you're coming in and you feel like almost something against your age and then gender. Like, I always felt like, oh, not only am I, like, the youngest person in the room, I'm also the only female. I'm like, really? Like, fuck me.
Yeah, I'm the only person on a lot of our work calls that doesn't have a beard.
Is it awkward at all?
Honestly, I've been doing this for so long with, you know, going to school and then going and working for our previous employer, which...
Construction.
Yep.
Very male.
Very male. And then at the place where I'm at currently is very male. Well, you're on a paper mill. I am at a paper mill.
I wouldn't expect many people.
One of the perks, though, is the bathroom is all yours.
I will say that is a great perk. Yeah. I will say that is one of the best perks.
We'll never complain about that.
But yeah, it's hard to almost even say because we're just so used to it at this point. Where you're just used to being the only female, you're used to being the youngest person on the call, and you know, having long hair, you're pretty attractive.
Thanks.
I know. But it's like, it's awkward.
There's part of you that wants to get along with everyone and not stir the pot. And that's something that I think a lot of women have dealt with because you do deal with a lot of borderline comments and behavior where you are not sure if that's something that needs to be called out or if that's something you just need to write out because you don't want to make enemies.
I've had people
talk.
I've had people call me a cupcake. Like,
I am princess at work. I am cupcake.
Yes. They're like, what's up, cupcake? I'm like, have you seen me? Like, I also don't like dress like a female at all. And so I'm just like, whoa, like that really threw me off. Or like somebody told me my voicemail sounded like I was naked laying on a bed smoking a cigarette, and I was like, what the actual fuck? like that was something
great.
somebody literally said to me on the phone. I'm like, what is going on? But
it's a weird world, because you're like, I you know, where you need to set your bounds. For me, it's I don't even know if they want to know, but it's like a 3 strikes you're out. Somebody, you know, because sometimes people are getting used to, especially like in a place where they're not used to having women, like people are going to make mistakes, and they're going to say some things that they're even going to be embarrassed about, and they didn't mean to say in front of you, and it's an accident, and they say it and then they regret it. But if they say it again at a later time or something similar, then that's somebody to kind of watch out for. And then if they do it again, that's something you need to address. And that's just my personal way, because I am one of maybe like 5 or 6 women in a mill of like a few hundred who aren't working in admin.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they're all in HR.
Yeah, HR, admin, they're more supporting roles, and which we are also I guess everybody there is a supporting role.
But I see like there are a lot of personal assistants. They're always the receptionist, or they're always HR, and it's just not fun. Like I don't have anyone to look up to, which is kind of sad. But another myth of engineering is like you have to do things that are your hobbies are mainly engineering hobbies, but you paint and you do other kind of things that are more creative in a sense. Do you feel like that kind of doesn't go well with your personality, or
I mean,
like the engineering side and your creative side? Or
it was a struggle for a while, because it felt like I was giving up something, especially with school. School kind of takes over your life. It's very time consuming. And so for a few years I didn't do any art, and that was an issue for me.
When you were studying?
When I was studying. It was probably about 4 or 5 years until I started painting again.
And it took you 4 years to get your degree, right?
Yeah, 4 years.
Okay, yeah. That's probably why. I mean, I had no time. In engineering school, like, it is as bad as they say it is. Like, it's definitely doable. Like, don't get me wrong. You can get through a 4-year engineering program.
It's hard.
But it is, like you said, you have to stop basically all your hobbies to get through it. Because you're studying constantly. I mean, they're some of the hardest classes you'll ever take.
Yeah, and
way harder than when you get into the workforce. I mean, the workforce obliges.
You have Google in the workforce.
Yeah. I don't get engineering school. I don't understand why it was that hard.
It's
like, I think back to it and I'm like, gosh, those were some really hard classes, and I used like maybe 1%, if that, yeah, 1% of what I learned.
Yeah,
it's sad.
I
paid a lot of money. I'm $40K deep in debt.
I discovered they pay you, they don't pay you. You pay them.
You pay them.
You pay them to teach you how to critically think.
Yeah.
In a more logical, step-by-step way. But that's pretty much the only thing I got out of it that I currently use.
Yeah,
because in school they just touch on stuff very light. You know, I work with pumps all the time now, but I had to learn it all on my own.
Or valves.
After school valves.
Missed the valve class.
Because
where was that in college? Could have really used that one.
But with, you know, on track for getting you through school, do pay attention to all those things.
Yeah, I think the problem solving is definitely the most important.
Especially because you don't know where you're gonna go.
Yeah, in the hard work ethic.
Yeah,
like you don't have. You're surrounded by people who also have a hard work ethic, and that's why it's so easy to work with engineers, because you know they're not lazy. Because you can't. Lazy people don't get through engineering degree programs.
I figured this out after school, that there's 3 different types of people that graduate with an engineering degree. First one is the people who are like naturally good at engineering, which
no.
And then there's people who are super stubborn and have a lot of grit, who just can't give up even though maybe they suck at it. And that was me. And then third, there's people who are very well connected with the first 2 groups.
Yes, I would agree. I definitely helped a couple people graduate who definitely should not have graduated.
Oh yeah, there was a lot of people with a lot.
But there's a lot of
really
there
big
was
databases.
There was a lot of grit in there. I used to stalk my professors. Like, I'm not kidding. Like, I would sit out there like a puppy dog, and I'd wait. Like, where are you? And then I would make them go through every question. And there were some doubts. I don't know if you've experienced this, but there were some doubts where I'm like, dang, I don't know if I can do this for another 2 years.
Yeah.
Like, I think the first 2 years were really hard. Once I started to figure out like a kind of a plan or get kind of comfortable to it, then it was a little bit easier. But I had doubts where I'm like, I don't even know if I should do this.
Yeah.
And honestly, some of the professors, the women professors, were the meanest to me. I don't know if you've experienced that at all.
I was pretty quiet.
You had big classes.
I
so
did
like
have big
I went to a smaller University of Portland, and you're talking like 20 to 30 students. Yours are like probably 300.
Few more.
So
Yeah.
I knew my professors by name. Like, that's why I went to a smaller college.
Yeah.
Because I wanted that connection.
I wanted to hide in the group.
Yeah.
And I was successful.
Do what she did. Yeah, engineering school was super hard. I can't even put myself back in that mindset because it was just such a different time for me than I have now. Now that I have weekends back and you get paid. Once you get paid, it's so worth it.
Yeah.
And I also was kind of shocked because you go through engineering school and you think you're gonna make all this money, and you do. You make good money, but it's still not as much as you think it is. Like, you look at that, when you sign your letter, you're like, wow, 70,000. That's a lot of money. And then when you get your checks and stuff, because of taxes, it's like, this doesn't feel like a lot. It hurts a little bit. And then you're like, dang. And then you usually don't get promoted until like 2 years in or every 2 years. So you're like, okay, it would take me 4 or 5 years to get 100K or something. And you're like trying to figure out, you're like, I'm gonna spend my whole life working for money.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was really fortunate because my husband is also an engineer, and so we have that double income.
Rolling in dough over here.
Well, we try.
Maybe that should be your advice. Marry the engineers.
Actually,
find engineers.
Yeah.
That's actually pretty good advice. What else do we have? Like, I'm trying to think of other questions to ask you. I'm trying to think if we were to put ourselves in their shoes.
Oh, gosh.
And they're looking to go into mechanical engineering. I guess, would you switch degrees? Or do you think you're pretty content with the mechanical engineering degree?
I'm content. But then again, I am one of those people who, when I went into engineering, I knew when I came out of engineering, I didn't want to do engineering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you come out and you're like, wow, this is not what I thought I'd be doing.
But with the mechanical engineering degree, you can do so many things because all you need is that little statement on your
This is true.
and
you're an engineer
resume.
for life. Like,
yeah, no
matter what you do, even if you go into like communications or business or whatever, people will look at your stuff and go, wow, you're an engineer?
Yeah, a lot of things come with it.
So they automatically think you're smart. So it's worth it just for like the hype, I would say.
Yeah. Well, and that was the one thing is like, because I was really fortunate because when I went through school, my husband was also going through school at the same time, so we could bitch and moan to each other about school. And it was really tough. There was a lot of crying, a lot of tears. If you think no one cries, everyone cries.
I'm not even. Can I even put it on a hand?
I cried. Physics? Oh god! After physics midterm, I walked out and bawled, and I got a really bad grade.
I definitely shed many tears in the library. I've also shed tears in front of others. Like, others have walked in, and I go, don't even look at me. So you will cry.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care if you're a guy or a girl, like, or a woman, I should say. You're a man or you're a woman, you are going to cry. Physics 1 and Physics 2 will make you cry.
Yeah.
Vector calculus, that shit will make you cry. Like, I shed so many tears. I had full-blown panic attacks. It's all worth it though, because you have a degree to fall back on. So like, no matter what happens in your life, once you have that degree, it just makes it so much better. Like,
yeah.
You're an engineer. So I don't know. That's my advice. Is I know it sounds hard. It's awful. We know, we went through it. It's hell, but it's so worth it just to open all those doors afterwards. Because I've never had a problem getting a job.
Yeah. Same.
She quit her job with no plan.
Well-paying job. And
Like, you literally left. She quit her job, had no fucking plan, went home, and got a job within a couple months.
it was great.
By choice. Like,
It was
what
great.
other degree could do that?
And I couldn't pay way more than I was getting paid.
Yeah, I do love that. That's the only reason to switch jobs, guys. That's where you get the real dough.
And now I only work 7 to 3:30 instead of construction hours.
Yeah, no more therapy.
No more therapy. No more therapy at work.
Oh my God. So bad. But that's really all the questions I have for you. I do have a video if you guys are interested on 5 steps to become an engineer, so check that out. Other guys, otherwise, we will see you guys next time.